Hi everybody, I hope this video finds you well. In today's video, I will be introducing our class, Math 150 and 150S, and going over the syllabus for our course. Let me start by saying a little bit about the structure of our class. Our class will be taught in what is called an asynchronous manner. This means that there will be no mandatory meeting times during the semester, and all content will be delivered to you through lecture videos on YouTube. We will also be making a lot of use of our Canvas page. On Canvas, you will find all the files you need for our class, announcements, discussion boards, and your grades. You will also be submitting all your assignments and assessments via Canvas. So, what is Math 150 all about? Well, this class is a survey course introducing statistics and probability. That means during the next 16 weeks, we are going to cover a wide range of topics, from sampling theory to descriptive statistics to inferential statistics and data modeling. Our course won't go super deep into any one of these areas, but instead we'll try to provide you with a framework that will be useful in future classes or other disciplines. This class is truly one of the most directly and immediately usable classes you can take, which makes me really excited for getting to teach this class to you guys for the next 16 weeks. So, now that we've sort of got a brief introduction down, let's go ahead and work our way through the syllabus so that you understand the structure, policies, and expectations of this course. First of all, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Ben Mitchell, and I'll be your instructor for the next 16 weeks for this class. The first thing I want to call your attention to at the start of the syllabus is a couple ways of communicating and getting help or asking questions during the term. We'll talk about this again later on in the syllabus, but I want to just point these out right at the top here. The first is that each week we will have online office hours via Zoom. These times each week will be Monday from 2 to 3 p.m., Tuesday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., and Thursdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Each day in the morning of a scheduled office hour, you'll receive a reminder email reminding you that that office hour is occurring that day, along with the link to that Zoom meeting. These office hours are, of course, optional, just like office hours if we were meeting in person, but they're a great chance to come in and have a live discussion about the material or content of our class. There are other ways to ask questions and communicate during the class, but these office hours are the closest to a sort of live discussion that we can have here. If you want to have a direct contact via email, I've also listed my email address up top here. My email is bmitchell@elcamino.edu. We'll talk about one other way of communicating during the class, discussion boards on our Canvas page, a little bit later in the syllabus. So, let's talk a little bit about what this course is. There's a big list of a description of what to expect in Math 150. I'm not going to go over this right now because a lot of it isn't going to necessarily mean too much. But what I do want to talk a little bit about is what it means to be in a support class. As you know, Math 150 is statistics and probability. What support is that the support course was designed to support students that are concurrently enrolled in elementary statistics. That support section is there to basically give some extra time to review core skills and topics necessary for you to learn and meet the objectives of this course. Support sections, as you can see here, are relatively new to El Camino. They've only been around for about a year or two, and certainly they're very new to the sort of remote learning structure that we have here. But what they were designed to do is resemble discussions and recitation sections that are at universities. The support section, while listed as a separate course, is directly connected to our main course. And while you will receive a letter grade for the main course, 150, you will receive a pass, no pass grade for the support section. The assessments, however, are going to be done jointly. So there won't be any special assessments just for the main class or just for the support class. Your assessments will be applied to both classes simultaneously. What does support really mean in the context of our class? Well, it just means that you have basically an extra hour each week to spend a little bit more time reviewing and practicing and engaging with the material. You'll see that once we get started, there will be some additional practice videos and documents that you can sort of use to simulate that extra hour that if we were meeting in person, we would actually be meeting for. So basically that support there is just to give you a little bit of extra time to work with the material and really make sure you're comfortable with what's going on in our class. All right, now that we sort of understand what the support element of our class really means, let's talk a little bit about what you need for this class in terms of required materials. First of all, let's talk about the text. The required textbook for this class simply is that there isn't one. Course notes, which are written by me, will be posted and periodically updated on our Canvas page. That means you do not need to purchase any sort of textbook for this class. Everything you need is going to be provided to you. If you've looked at the bookstore on campus or on their webpage, you might have seen this Moore's The Basic Practice of Statistics listed. You can pick it up if you want an additional reference, but it is by no means necessary or required for our class. So in terms of a textbook, you don't need to worry about that at all. The material you really do need to make sure you have is a calculator. Specifically, a calculator capable of statistical testing is absolutely essential for our course. I highly recommend a TI 84 or 84 plus model or beyond, meaning TI 84, 84 plus, 87, 89. I believe there's like a TI titanium, whatever you sort of like, any of those will be good. Why do I recommend the TI brand so much? Well, it's because in the calculator demonstrations in the lecture videos, I always use a TI calculator. So to make it as easy as possible for you to follow along, it's also useful to have a TI brand calculator. Can you use a calculator of a different brand? Sure, that's absolutely up to you. Just be aware that if you use like a Casio or some other brand or something like that, it's going to be up to you to figure out how to do the same operations on your calculator. You can certainly reach out to me and I'll try to help you as much as possible. Just remember that all the demonstration videos are using a TI calculator. Hopefully by the time you're watching this syllabus video, you've already received an email from me with information about the calculator loan program at El Camino. If you don't have a calculator and you don't want to purchase one for this class, I highly recommend using the calculator loan program. All you need to do is fill out a technology requisition form. It was in an email that I sent to you guys earlier. It'll also be on your Canvas page. Fill that out and you can request to borrow for this term a calculator as well as a laptop or hotspot. Definitely for our class, the key thing is the calculator, but if you're in need of a laptop or a hotspot as well, definitely make sure you can just put them all together and request them all at the same time. So to summarize here, you have no required textbooks, so you don't need to worry about that, but you absolutely must get a calculator for this course. You will need that calculator right away, so don't delay on that because we'll be using it straight away in our class. Is there anything else you need for this class? Not really, though since it is a remote or online class, you definitely want to make sure you have a device capable of accessing internet so you can check Canvas, check your email, watch the lecture videos on YouTube, etc. And you'll also need some way of putting your work or solutions into PDF format. That basically can be broken into two ways. One is if you have a device like a tablet where you can actually just write your work directly onto the tablet and it is created into an electronic document, that's perfect. Otherwise, you'll want to get something like a software or an app for your phone so that you can scan your handwritten work into a PDF. I have a document on Canvas for you guys called the Electronic Submissions Guidelines document that not only goes over what you need to make sure you do when submitting in our class, but also gives you guys some recommendations for free apps that allow you to scan handwritten work into PDF format. So definitely make sure to check that out before we get to our first few quizzes or other assignments. All right, now that we've discussed the required the required materials for our course, let's go on to page 2 of our syllabus here. We're actually not going to say too much about page 2 here. On page 2, there's a big list of course objectives, as well as some support objectives, as well as some student learning outcomes. All of these are definitely very important. They won't mean too much to you right now. Hopefully, if you reference the syllabus midway through the course or at the end of our class, you can look at this and realize you have really indeed learned all this, which is always a nice feeling. It definitely makes it feel like you've accomplished a lot, which you have in a class like this after 16 weeks. But for now, we'll go ahead and skip this and move on to page 3. On page 3, we've got some very important information, namely how you're graded and assessed in this course. So let's talk a little bit about grading policies. For your guys' class, we determine your grade based on 3 categories, each with their own percentage weight. We have take-home quizzes that make up 25% of your grade. You'll have 3 midterms during the course, Each are worth 15% for a total of 45% of your grade. And at the very end of our class, we will have a comprehensive or cumulative final exam that is worth 30% of your overall grade. So your grade is entirely determined by these three categories, each with their own percentage weight. Canvas will keep track of your grade, and it also does the weighting for you. So your grade on Canvas is a very accurate representation of how you're doing in our class. Overall letter grades at the end are assessed on a normal scale. So we have A, B, C, D, F. Those are the only grades we give, no pluses or minuses. Also, this is a good opportunity for me to mention that there are no extra credit assignments in our class, so you shouldn't be expecting at the end of the term an assignment that has a bunch of extra credit problems or anything like that. However, you will find that pretty much on every quiz and exam, there are always a couple of extra credit problems. So no specifically extra credit assignments, but there are extra credit opportunities on pretty much every normal assignment you do. All right, let's talk a little bit about each of these three categories. So first, for quizzes. Quizzes will be due every Tuesday except those immediately following a midterm. So basically this means that you should be expecting a weekly quiz, except that you get a break after each exam. For quizzes, you will be submitting your own work, so you will each submit your own quiz. However, while you're working on your quiz, feel free to discuss the quiz, your questions, your work, how you're approaching the questions with your classmates. It's totally fine to collaborate as long as you write up and submit your own work there. Quizzes will be submitted electronically via Canvas and must be submitted as a single PDF file. This will all be covered in the electronic submissions guideline. Quizzes will be due by 11:59 p.m., so you have all the way till the end of the day on those Tuesdays when they are due. Do be aware, especially for the first couple of quizzes, take a little bit of time to make sure that you do the quiz ahead of time so that you can submit it and make sure it gets in on time and has no issues with the formatting, because submissions that are late or in an incorrect format will be penalized. If you have any questions about electronic submissions in our class, definitely reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you guys with that. I don't want to be grading on how you submitted something, so if you reach out ahead of time on it, I'm more than happy to walk you through the process of making sure you get everything submitted correctly. Again, details about electronic submissions can be found on Canvas. Also, at the end of the term, your lowest quiz score will be dropped. So one of those quizzes, whichever is lowest, will be dropped from your grade. All right, let's talk about the second major category, which are midterms. You will have 3 midterms during the course of our semester. They'll happen every 4 weeks. They will be on the Fridays of weeks 4, 8, and 12. That basically is telling you that we're using those midterms to divide the class into 4 pieces, right? So we've got sort of 4 quarters to our class. Each of those quarters is bookended either by a midterm or the very last quarter is bookended by the final exam. So you know the dates of your midterms ahead of time, Fridays of weeks 4, 8, and 12. Midterms will be made available at 9 a.m. and then be due by 5 p.m. the same day. That's an 8-hour window. Does that mean that it takes 8 hours to finish the exam? Not at all. The midterms are written in the same style that they would be written if we were meeting in person, meaning that they're written to be completed in about 2 hours. However, I'm giving you guys an 8-hour window to work on it because I'm aware that you have other responsibilities, work, other classes, whatever sort of comes up. So I want to make sure you have a wider window than is necessary to complete it. Can you use the full 8 hours to complete the exam? If you want to, it's definitely not what it's sort of written as or designed, but it's your option. You've got 8 hours to complete it. Just want to make sure you get it done in that time frame. When you're working on your midterms, you're going to be allowed access to your notes. You'll be allowed access to your notes, the other course materials like the lecture videos, the practice problems, whatever you want to look at from our course materials, you are certainly welcome to do so while working on your midterms. What you can't do while working on your midterms is discuss the midterms with anyone else in the class or any individuals outside the class. So with quizzes, you feel free to collaborate as long as you turn in your own work. For midterms, you have to turn in your own work and you cannot collaborate with anyone else while you're working on it. Midterms, just like everything else in our class, will be submitted electronically via Canvas and must come in as a single PDF file. Do be aware, since we're telling you the dates of these exams way in advance, no makeup exams will be given. However, if an emergency does come up and you miss an exam or one of the exams simply does not go very well, one midterm exam score can be replaced at the end of the semester with your final exam score if the final exam score is higher. So in other words, we're not dropping any of the midterm scores, but we will replace a midterm score if your final exam is actually better than that. Once again, do be aware of the deadlines and everything, because submissions that are late or in an incorrect format will be penalized. Finally, or appropriately enough, we have the final exam. The final exam for our class is a comprehensive or cumulative exam, meaning it will cover everything from the entire semester. In style, in terms of how it looks, it's pretty similar to midterms, though it's a little bit longer. It will be held on the very last day of our class, which for us is Thursday, June 10th. Final exam will have a window of from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Once again, you'll be allowed access to your notes and other course materials. However, you will not be allowed to discuss or work on the final exam with any other students, and certainly not with any individuals from outside of our class. You'll submit the final exam just like everything else, directly via Canvas. So, in terms of assessments, our class is very straightforward. We've got basically weekly quizzes, and then every 4 weeks you have a midterm, or at the very end you have a final exam. Basically, you can think about our course being broken into 4 quarters or 4 units. Each unit is ended with a major exam, either a midterm for the first 3 units or the final exam for the last unit. All right, let's go ahead then and talk about page 4 of our syllabus there. So now that we've discussed how you're sort of assessed or graded in this class, let's talk a little bit about some other sort of important requirements or some general big ideas about how to approach this class, as well as some campus-wide important dates. So in terms of general comments about our class, first of all, as we've mentioned, all lecture materials will be presented through videos posted on YouTube on my YouTube channel. All videos for your particular class will be found on a playlist named Math 150 Spring 2021. I'll update that playlist pretty regularly, and I'll let you guys know about what videos have been posted, as well as giving you sort of recommended schedules for what to watch. Those schedules are just that, recommendations. You don't have to sort of follow them directly. You can follow them at your own pace, depending on your own schedule. But I would recommend staying as sort of close to the schedules as possible so that the work doesn't pile up or become too much when you get close to a quiz or an exam. Along with the videos, I'll always tell you about the sort of associated suggested exercises or practice problems that I would recommend trying, so that you get a chance to engage with the material yourself and really make sure you're comfortable performing the calculations or making the interpretations that we're learning about in that portion of the course. For additional practice, as I've also mentioned, instead of a textbook, you guys get a set of course notes written by me, which is pretty handy considering that it'll be written in the same style and tone as what you'll see on the quizzes and exams, so you can sort of get used to how I phrase things. Definitely read through those course notes. They do cover the same stuff as the lecture videos, but they often give alternate explanations or have alternate examples, so they flesh out what you're seeing in those lecture videos. Also keep in mind, to get comfortable with our Canvas site, I would recommend doing that sort of as soon as possible, just spending a little bit of time sort of navigating around it, just seeing what everything that's on there, because all the documents necessary for our class will be found on our Canvas site. This includes the exercises, the quizzes, the review guides for the exams, and all other supplemental materials. Canvas will also be used to submit our assignments. It'll be where you keep track of your grade. You'll see announcements there, including those weekly schedules. It'll also be host for our discussion boards, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. Finally, also, do keep in mind that all the assignments are going to be submitted electronically. That means you definitely want to familiarize yourself with the guidelines for electronic submissions, so that you know that you're submitting things in the correct manner. You don't want to receive any penalties for that. And again, if you have any questions about that, always feel free to reach out. All right, speaking of reaching out, let's go ahead and talk about the different sort of communication options you have in this class. Since our class is completely online, there are several ways to ask questions, get help during our course. Some of these we've already talked about, but let's just go ahead and recap them. First of all, there are online office hours each week through Zoom. We have those 3 hours that I've already mentioned. Those are going to be guaranteed each week. If you ever have questions, feel free to hop on there. Remember, you'll receive a reminder email the morning of those office hours with the meeting link. Remember, those office hours are optional, and they're also for your benefit, meaning that I schedule them for an hour at a time. If you have 1 or 2 questions, feel free to hop on, ask your questions. If you're done in 5 or 10 minutes, you head on out and go on your way, right? They're for your guys' benefit. It's not like you're locking in saying, oh, I have to be there for the entire hour. If you can only show up, 30 minutes in and ask your question, that's fine. They're just open office hours that are available at those times. Also, if you happen to miss some of those office hours, I will post anything that we write down or cover during those office hours onto Canvas. We won't record the office hours themselves, but if you want to just see what we wrote down, if we work through any problems, I will post the sort of notes or boards that we go through during the office hours directly to Canvas at the close of the meetings. The second major way to sort of communicate in our class is making use of the Canvas discussion boards. We're going to have discussion boards on Canvas for each set of exercises, each quiz, etc. Always feel free to post on these discussion boards if you have any questions. I hope that these discussion boards give you guys a great chance to discuss amongst each other, but I will also regularly check the boards and answer questions on there. I really want to strongly promote the discussion boards for any content questions you have. There's really 2 reasons for that. The first reason is that if you ask a question on one of those discussion boards and you get an answer or a response either from one of your fellow students or from myself, well, then everybody in the class benefits from that because they can all see your question and they can all see the response. So it's just like asking a question in lecture. Everybody gets to hear it. Everybody gets to benefit from it. The second reason that I really promote the Canvas discussion boards for our content questions is because on my end, it's much easier to type out mathematical statements or equations in Canvas than it is in email. There's actually a mathematics editor for Canvas, so it's very easy for me to write out equations in Canvas as opposed to directly in emails. It's possible in emails, it's just a little messier, so for ease on my end, I really like the content questions on Canvas. Speaking of email, though, we do have that third and final way of communicating. I'm always available directly via email through bmitchell@elcamino.edu. Certainly, if you have any personal questions like about your grade or how to approach the course or anything like that, you can always email me there directly. If you do have content questions that you'd rather not ask on the discussion board, you can certainly ask them through email as well, though I do generally prefer if you ask them through the Canvas discussion boards. All right. So to recap, basically 3 different ways to contact or ask questions during our term. Office hours through Zoom each week, Canvas discussion boards that are always up there, and then also direct email bmitchell@elcamino.edu. All right, let's talk about a couple of important dates. These important dates don't just apply to our class, but they apply to all spring semester classes at El Camino. The first is the first drop deadline, which is Sunday, February 28th. This is the deadline to drop without receiving any sort of notation on your record and receiving a full refund. That Sunday is basically the Sunday after week 2. So what this means is that you basically have 2 weeks to see if the format of this course works for you. All classes right now are in an online learning environment or a remote learning environment, but some of the courses are synchronous, meaning live courses where you have live lectures, and some are asynchronous like ours. Definitely take some time at the beginning to make sure that you're comfortable learning in this asynchronous sort of manner using these lecture videos and everything. You have until this Sunday, February 28th to sort of make that decision. The second big deadline, of course, is the second drop date, or second withdrawal date, which is Friday, May 14th. That is at the conclusion of week 12, which means you guys will have taken a bunch of your quizzes and all 3 of your midterms by then. That will be your chance to sort of assess if you're in danger of receiving like a failing grade or a non-passing grade. You can withdraw from the course and receive a W by that date. One thing to keep in mind about withdrawing from this course in general is definitely make sure that if you do decide to drop the class, you make sure you officially withdraw from the class. There's no real way of like checking attendance in our class since it's asynchronous. So if you plan on dropping the class, make sure you go ahead and do that on your own in my ECC. Finally, since we are an online asynchronous class, it is very important to be on top of the announcements that you're going to be receiving. That means you want to make sure you check your El Camino email on a regular basis as well as our Canvas page. I would already sort of guarantee that you're going to be receiving at least 2 announcements a week in Canvas, setting up your weekly schedule and then sort of doing a midweek reminder. You'll also usually receive emails about like deadlines for upcoming quizzes or exams or anything else that's sort of going on in our class. So just make sure you're in the habit of checking that frequently. It really is also there to sort of encourage you to be proactive about the things that are going on. That's the key to these sorts of courses, is to just jump on things right away. Even if you're unsure about stuff, just reach out about it. Say, I'm not quite sure what I should be working on, or I'm stuck on this. The sooner you ask, the better there. Speaking about things that make this course run more smoothly, let's talk about some ways to be really successful in this, the cornerstones to success. These probably apply to almost any class, but I think they're very, very important in a mathematics course, and specifically a remote learning mathematics course. So let's go over them real quick. First of all, keeping up with the material. That probably should make sense in an asynchronous class where it's sort of your choice when to watch the lecture videos and get the content. It's very easy for things to pile up. I try to give you guys these regular schedules to avoid that. That's why I really recommend following those schedules as much as you can. Also, make sure you give yourself some time to be able to reread and annotate your own notes and rewatch some lecture videos. Hopefully a lot of the videos will be pretty clear and you should be able to watch them on sort of one go through, but some you might want to make a note of that you want to go back and rewatch, right? Some might you consider really important or just a little trickier than others, so make sure you allot some time for that. You also want to make sure you have time to read through the course notes and try as many of the exercises as possible. One other thing I just want to mention here, you'll see more mentions of this as we start our class, but in terms of watching the lecture videos, one of the keys about that is to make sure that you're active while sort of watching those lecture videos. To help with that, in the description of each of your lecture videos, there is a link to the blank PDF that is covered in that video. That means you can use that blank PDF, and if you want, you can fill it out as the lecture video goes, which keeps you a little bit more engaged and a little bit more active while watching the lecture videos. All right, speaking of notes, taking good notes. Remember, you're going to have access to all of your notes for all the assignments and assessments. You can certainly reference the lecture videos and other things when taking the exams and doing the quizzes, but by being well organized and having your own notes, it's going to make the class much easier. An 8-hour window sounds like a lot of time, but it can very easily be eaten up if you're having to look through all the different videos to solve each problem. It's much easier if your own notes basically handle everything and you only have to go back and reference the lecture videos as sort of a last resort. Also, studying adequately before the exams by reviewing your notes. You guys will also get review guides for each exam, so you want to make sure you work through those review guides thoroughly and ask about anything that is not clear, right? A lot of times, you want to make sure that you're not just being able to solve that single problem, but you sort of understand the general concepts behind it and how to recognize and solve similar problems. There's a lot of sort of problem recognition in a class like this, so definitely making sure if there's anything that's unclear, you reach out about it. Finally, making use of resources. We have a lot of resources, office hours, the Canvas discussion boards, our course notes, aka our textbook, and other students in the class, right? You definitely want to make use of those resources as much as you can. Statistics is a very interpretive field, so it helps to have those discussions either with me or with some of your fellow students, because it'll make it a lot easier to really understand how we make those interpretations based on the data. As with everything, but especially with the resources, be proactive with these. The sooner you reach out, the better, right? Even if you're not even quite sure what your question is, just make an attempt to ask it, and I'll do my best then to respond, by trying to clarify it, and we'll eventually figure out what we really need to sort of discuss there. So never hesitate to ask questions if you have them about anything sort of in our course here. All right, now that we've talked about those cornerstones, let's go on to the next page here. On this last page, besides the sort of schedule and important dates on the last page, we've got 2 major things to discuss. We're not going to read through these, but I'd just like to make a couple quick comments. First, in terms of academic honesty. In this class, academic honesty is very important. Keep in mind the focus in academic honesty in our class is not about materials. You're allowed to use your notes. You're allowed to reference the lecture videos, the course notes, whatever you like while working on things. What is very important, though, is that since you have access to all those materials, that you turn in your own work, right? You can collaborate and talk with your fellow classmates for quizzes. Can't do that for midterms or the final, but you can do that for quizzes. But still, when you go to turn in your work, that it's your work that you're turning in. This is especially important because any evidence that submitted work came from an outside source, especially including methods or approaches that were not covered in our class, can result in failing grades on that assignment. It's also a really important deal here for academic honesty, not just on my part, but also for you guys as a class. I think, as I said at the beginning, statistics is an incredibly applicable and useful field. There's a lot to really gain from this class, not just for future academic classes, but in terms of like your future disciplines, your professions, careers, even just your general life, because data and statistics is around us all the time. By really working at this course and putting some effort into it, you'll really gain a lot from this class. So definitely just make sure the work you turn in is really your own there. Finally, in terms of gaining stuff from this class, we want to make sure that this class is accessible to everyone. So if you need any educational accommodations, please let me know as soon as possible, and I'll make sure you get them. This also applies just in general about reaching out about things that you sort of need or would like to see in the class. I really push for you guys to take ownership of this class. Let me know if there's things that you think would be helpful, or things that I can try to sort of change or do for you to make sure that you gain as much as possible from this course. As I mentioned, it's a favorite class of mine. I think it's an incredibly useful class, and so I really want all of you to get as much as you possibly can from our semester. All right, let's talk about the last page here. There's not much to say except that just to remind you that all the sort of dates for the quizzes being due, the midterms, when they're going to take place, the final, all that is already set, so you can reference this at any time. These things aren't going to change. We will also have this on the front page of our Canvas site. So if you ever need to reference these, you can see it there. I'll also send reminders as these different deadlines come closer. But you have all this to just sort of remind you, is if you need to plan out your next couple of months, you know when our quizzes, when our exams will be, all that sort of stuff there. And overall, this brings us sort of to the end of our syllabus here. I'm really excited to be working with all of you this term. Math 150 is one of my favorite classes to teach. It's by far the class that I've taught the most of here at El Camino. And it's still definitely a learning experience doing it in this remote environment now, but I'm really excited for it. I think there's a lot to sort of gain for you guys, a lot of benefits, a lot of applications. So it's a really exciting time. Looking forward to working with all of you, getting hopefully to see some of you for the meet and greets next week. Otherwise, can't wait to start answering some questions.